Hello friends, I am Baltmatrix and today we're taking a look at Sir Toys Computron from WFC. Now, this set is actually called Calculation King, but on servtoys.com, which there is a link down in the description for purchase, it is called the WFC Computron set, or, I'm sorry, Technobot set. But here is some, well, I wouldn't say here is some. Here is a flyer that comes with the set and comes with each figure, so you could get some idea of what the animation models look like. They all do form together and merge into Warrior Calculation King. If there's anybody out there that speaks Chinese or reads Chinese, I would really like to know what the names of all of these characters are. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find the names of any of them online, and I have looked. So if anybody does read Chinese, reach out to me on Twitter or down in the comments so I can send you pictures of their instruction manuals. Speaking of their instruction manuals, the manuals are actually pretty well done. They are nice and colorful. Each figure is shown in bright, colorful ways, and there's no real problem with these instructions except for the combination of Calculation King. The instructions are actually a little bit too small, but not a big deal. It's pretty easy to figure out. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at each one of these figures individually, and then we're going to merge them together, just like you would expect. We're going to start off looking at the figures with Nose Cone, and going forward I am going to use their Generation 1 names. Nose Cone's rendition here is really, really nice, though I do kind of wish that the actual drill in the front was bigger. There are no wheels underneath, so you can't roll him along as you would expect, but that's not that big a deal. I really like the coloring also on this figure, and all of these figures have good feeling plastic. Even if there are some minor imperfections here and there, all the figures feel solid and quite good. Now, the transformation for this guy is pretty easy. We're going to start off with by lifting this yellow piece up and then coming to the front of the drill and actually grabbing the front of the drill and pushing it down, grabbing the back of the drill and flipping it up, and then take the front of the drill and fold it almost all the way down to underneath the vehicle mode. But first take the front wheels and fold them in place. Then we can take the front or the bottom of the nose cone, turn it 180 degrees, and then just fold it down and peg it into place. Reach inside of the nose cone and pull out the head until you hear a snap. Turn it around 180 degrees, then fold the top of the nose cone back up into place and this yellow piece back up. Then we can take these gray pieces that are in the middle of the vehicle mode, and they will unpeg, though they do require a bit of force, and fold them straight up like that. Next, come down to the back treads, unpeg them, and then fold them up, out to form shoulders, slide the arms down, exposing the elbows. And then come to the back and grab the back of the vehicle mode and split it apart, and you should then be able to fold out the legs, fold the knees up, fold out the feet, and flip down the heels. Believe it or not, the heels are actually a little bit difficult to flip down. You do really have to put some pressure on those bits to fold them down. And you can fold them flat, like down like that, or you can have them more out and open like that. Then these sections that are on the top of the thighs will flip out and unpeg the legs and then stand the figure up. And here we have Nose Cone in robot mode. The robot mode is actually painted really well, but it definitely has a more lanky feel to it than I think the original Nose Cone was meant to have. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it does feel a little bit on the thin side. Head sculpt is pretty good, however, there is not a lot of detailing happening on the head. As you can see, there's not much in way of paint there. The yellow and the red eyes give it a more sinister feel than the rest of the figure, and there's no real other yellow found on the figure except that one part on the top in vehicle mode and his fists, which is just a little odd, but it is a nod to the original Generation 1 figure. Posability is pretty okay. Head is on a swivel, cannot look up or down. A hinge in the shoulder, then a swivel inside of that. Swivel at the upper arm. 90-degree bend at the elbow, or almost 90-degree bend. Fists do not articulate around, but they do articulate in and out a little bit. No torso articulation, but there is a swivel at the hip, a hinge for in and out kicking, swivel at the upper thigh, though you do have to be careful with this one piece that is a flap out there. About almost 90-degree bend at the knee, and then there is that second knee for the transformation, and then some toe articulation and heels move forward and back, again, for the transformation. This figure comes with two accessories, a piece of a giant sword and this massive pick. The pick is able to be held in either hand with no problem. However, the sword, not so much. The hilt is too big for it to fit into the bottom part of the hand. And I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what I'm talking about. You see how there's a cup, or what I would call a cup holder shape to the hand? The smaller part is too small for the handle, and the bigger part is way too big, so it can't really hold the sword at all. It just kind of rests in his hand and has a tendency to fall out. Though it is enough so that it looks like he's holding it, so there is that. Overall, the nose cone is a good rendition. I wish there was a little bit more paint, but I like it. It's solid. It transforms nice and easily. It's fun to transform. Nothing really gets in the way, and it's a nice evolution of the original G1 nose cone figure. There are a couple of little oddities with getting it back into vehicle mode, specifically getting this nose cone out of his chest. I end up having to grab something to leverage it, or to lever it out, or to, lever it out. And then just twist that around, close it up, and then close that section up. And then the legs are a little bit problematic, so we fold the feet up again and fold the toes up. And then what I do is I'll fold the leg up all the way on the outside and then kind of just shimmy it in the back. That's actually the easier way to do it than try to go back the other way, because you end up twisting the toe in a weird direction that doesn't really work all that well. So just get those combined back up, fold those up, slide the arms up, fold them down, peg them into place. And there we go, fold these down, and we're done. Unfortunately, you can't peg in the weapons into this mode at all. Oh well, not a big deal. Overall, I like it. I think it works as a new nose cone. Next up is Afterburner, and he is this super weird motorcycle. I just say super weird because it is definitely a futuristic motorcycle in blue. It's the only real blue that's on any of these figures except for the back of the car. He rolls with no problems, as you can see, and the motorcycle mode works really well, even if it is weird. I mean, this is definitely a weird motorcycle. Transformation into robot mode is pretty easy, though it doesn't look like it at the outset. To start off, come to the front of the vehicle mode and unpeg the front sides and then flip them all the way around until they kind of cover up the wheels a little bit. And then we can grab the entire wheel section, fold it down, straighten it out. Well, first slide these little bits over until they snap into place. And there's this little cup section here that goes over the tire to hold it into place. Fold the feet down and flip them in. Go back here, foot down and flip it in. And then we can stand the figure up. Next, come to the back of the top of the vehicle mode and unpeg this whole section back here and just fold that straight down. Then the entire top will split open like that. Then the entire front section, or bottom of the vehicle mode, will open up, and then we can fold this section up, fold the wheel down into the chest. Actually, got to turn it around, so fold that section up to form the head, flip it around to form the chest, and fold that up. We got the chest formed up, fold this up, and it will snap into place inside this giant peg for the combiner mode. And just getting that lined up and pegged into place is requires a bit of effort, but nothing too crazy. Grab the arms and, oh, right. Forgot about this part. Flip these exhaust sections up, and then we can extend the arms and turn them. And there we go. In terms of robot modes, I think this works incredibly well, though it definitely does have a drone feeling. It really feels more like something from the first Transformers movie, but it really feels kind of cycloptic and mono-eyed. There's no real face happening on the head sculpt, though there is molding around the head. So, yeah, I mean, it looks cool, if not just a little bit creepy. The figure's posability is quite good. Head is on a ball joint, can look down that much, can look up that much, and obviously side to side. There is a swivel, or I should say a ratcheted swivel in the arm. Then there's no in and out movement, but there is a swivel at the upper arm and an almost 90-degree bend at the elbow, and the fists do articulate, though not that much because of the shielding here. No torso articulation again, but a ratchet in the hip, and then a hinge for in and out, though it is blocked by the arm, swivel at the upper thigh, bend at the knee. It looks like there's supposed to be ratchets, but there's no ratcheting. And then for the toes, there is in and out movement up and back, but unfortunately there aren't any real heels. And you would think that maybe you could deploy a part of the combiner to be heels. No, unfortunately you can't. So you do have to be very careful about how you pose this guy, because he does have a tendency to fall straight back. So Afterburner does come with these two giant swords. They don't fit in the hands very easily. So what you end up having to do is push them in from the front. And even then, you can see I'm already starting to damage the plastic. They don't want to be held at all, which is a shame, but I'm just not going to do it because I'm afraid I'm going to break it. But you can see in the directions he is supposed to be able to wield those swords. However, again, running into the problem where the hand is just too small for the actual hilt of the swords. I like this guy. I like this guy a lot. He's a lot of fun. Now, I do wish he was maybe more of a G1-esque color scheme, but hey, you know what? I'm happy for the blue. I really do actually like this color blue quite a bit. Kind of reminds me of Thundercracker, just a bit. Getting him back into vehicle mode is a bit of a pain with these bits that fold down, but once you've got those, he goes back into vehicle mode very easily. You do have to just remember to open up his face all the way once you've got him transformed back. Otherwise, these sections, the arms, might not close up correctly. No, they do. You can leave his head fully. Never mind. But there's the rub. That doesn't want to go back together if you don't do that. Okay, so that's why you got to do that. So that gives you some clearance, so you can push that guy in. Gotcha. Oh, and then getting this piece back on is a little bit tricky, but just... Oops, sorry, I did that off camera. Getting this piece back on is a little tricky. And then we combine the legs, push the legs together, fold them up at the knees, push the knees up all the way, fold out the toes, flip the toes down, unpeg, and flip them all the way around. And I really like this transformation. I actually had a little bit of a difficulty before because he came packaged in robot mode and slightly mistransformed, and I just kicked the camera, sorry. But the transformation is fun and really interesting. You end up with a good robot mode, except for the lack of heels. I really wish there was just a little piece that maybe just slid out back here. That would be really nice. Oh well. Still, vehicle mode is futuristic and cool, and really does look pretty good next to his little tunneling buddy here. Next up is Lightspeed, and Lightspeed is definitely got that whole Corvette/Camaro feel going on. A very futuristic one. The only thing I don't like about this vehicle mode are these blue spoiler bits that stick off the back. Honestly, not a huge fan of that design, but otherwise it looks really, really cool. And again, rolls with no problem whatsoever. The overall aesthetic of the car mode is good. Transformation into robot mode is a little weird. One thing you have to be careful of are the side view mirrors. Do not let them break. It is critical for the combined mode. You'll see why in a little bit. To start off with, fold these, well, I guess exhaust ports out, reach inside and unpeg these sections here, the doors on the side, allowing you to pull the arms out and away from the body like that. Then we can come into underneath the body, flip out the hands, and close up the forearms. And then we could fold them out of the way like that. Do have to unpeg them though. And then down here are the feet. Unpeg or split the front of the vehicle mode in half. Once we've got that section split off, we can then take the legs or the front of the vehicle mode and pull the front of the vehicle mode forward and extend the legs all the way out like so. And then we can turn the legs so that the exhaust ports are pointing up towards the back of the vehicle mode. And then we're supposed to, according to the directions, flip out these blue toes, and the blue toes or blue pieces are supposed to be his toes. More on that in a minute, something that I like to do instead. Come to the back of the vehicle mode, and it is going to unpeg from the rest of the body, fold down, and will become the robot mode's chest, like so. And then the butt of the robot mode is this piece, which fold these little wings in, flip out the engine, and then flip the whole section up, and it will peg into his back. These little wings fold up, and that's pretty much it. Fold those flat or fold them in. Doesn't really matter, whatever your preference is. Oh, shoot, that wasn't on camera. Sorry. Lastly, to get them kind of out of the way, take the thrusters that are on the top of the car mode and fold them up along the back, like that. Of all the robot modes, this is probably my least favorite. The red and the gray and the blue all work well, but there's just something about the proportions that feel way off to me. Also, the head sculpt is incredibly boring. That mono blue with the black visor, I just don't think works. It would be much better, in my opinion, if the eyes were maybe yellow, or even brown, or orange, or just something else so that they stuck out a little bit. Or if it had a silver face, that would also be preferable. Posability for the figure is pretty okay. Head is on a swivel, doesn't have any up and down movement. There is a ratcheted swivel here in the shoulder, a little bit of in and out movement on a hinge, swivel at the upper arm, just above the elbow, barely 90-degree bend at the elbow, no fist articulation. Oh, and also, the one thing I don't like is the proportion of the arm. I don't think that the lower arm is long enough, especially compared to the other figures. No torso articulation. Ratchet for forward and back, and then a hinge for in and out, swivel at the knee, over 90-degree bend at the knee, and it is a double knee, and then a ball joint in the toe. Now, the toes are something that I mentioned a little bit ago, and according to the directions, this is the way the figure is supposed to stand, but there's very little in terms of heels here. So I actually like to turn the foot around, and yes, you do lose some posability, but if you pull the foot all the way out, you do gain it a bit back, and you have a little bit better in terms of posability because you've got these much deeper heels. I don't think it works color-wise, but in terms of the figure being able to stand better, I think it works a lot better. Now, of all the bots, this is the first one that has no trouble whatsoever holding onto its weapons. It comes with these two swords with blunt tips, and it works well. It works really well. I think of the three, this guy is able to look the best with his weapons. Now, as I said before, my biggest complaint about this guy is the lack of paint, and I really would like some more paint on the head. On the rest of the body, I'm okay with the way it is, but really, that head needs some more detail. In fact, I think all of them could use just a bit more detail on their heads. Just personal, just a personal opinion of mine. Now, you might think that they are perfectly fine, and that's okay. Transformation back is pretty easy. The legs are the easiest part. The rest of the transformation back is a little bit trickier, especially when you come to the hood. These little tabs here are a real pain to deal with. And I would have loved for this to be just a smidge longer and be able to slide in and out, but it doesn't, so it's not the end of the world. Just got to be careful with the transformation, and you all know that I am not the most careful individual on the planet when it comes to transforming toys. I'm just not patient. So just getting everything back up, hooking the arms back in, sliding these back into place, and we don't want to close them up all the way until we have the rear of the vehicle mode back in place. Snap everything back in, fold up the forearm bits, and fold the thrusters back in. And if you think that these thrusters are going to be used for something later, you would be correct. We'll talk about that in a bit. Overall, this guy, he's pretty alright. Still my least favorite, but it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. You just gotta be a little bit patient with it. Next up is Strafe, and of the vehicle modes, this is my favorite. I love this twin-hulled attack ship. It doesn't hold together the best, specifically these front bits. They have a tendency to flop about, but I really, really like this alt mode. I think it's cool, even though it's pretty darn obvious that A, how he's going to transform, and B, that it looks like he might be out of some kind of video game or something. I like this a lot. It's just neat. Okay, transformation-wise is fun. I think the transformation for this thing is pretty cool. Start off with by coming to the back and unpegging the hips like that. And then come to the front and push the nose cone down, and it will flip around and peg into the bottom of the fuselage of the plane. Then we can grab the legs and accordion them out, or lever them out, come down to the front and grab the what will be the toe or the heels, flip them out and around, and then these toes will open up, and then you can start messing with the way this kind of sits so it can form heels. You can just start really kind of just moving it around just so you can come up with a way for these bits to form heels, and that, trust me, it's gonna need them. Open that up, and then we come up to the top here, unpeg the shoulders, flip down the arms, open up the bottom of the forearm, or open up the top of the forearms, and flip out the hands. Actually, they're the bottom of the forearms. And then turn them around 180 degrees. Open that up, flip out a hand, turn it around, and then finally grab the head and flip it up. And push it down, and there we go. Of the robot modes, this one is definitely the weirdest in proportions. The arms feel a lot longer than they should, and the legs feel a little bit on the stocky side. But I do like the overall look. The head you can pose in multiple different ways. You can either pose it like that, back all the way, or flip it forward and pose it up more forward like this. Either way works fine. Head sculpt is pretty good and really reminds me of Dinobot Swoop, just from the overall aesthetic and the overall look. And we finally have some silver on a face, which I greatly appreciate. Posability of the head is on a ball joint, can look all around, and the overall head sculpt works incredibly well for me, even if it feels oddly proportioned. There are multiple joints in the shoulders, so it can fold its arms out all the way like that, or it can hinge the shoulders to be a more natural look. There is a ratchet in the shoulder, swivel at the upper arm, elbow bends over 90 degrees. Hips don't have a ratcheting, but they do have a swivel and a hinge. These little bits are on ball joints, so it can go kick a little bit more forward. Knees are ratcheted, swivel at the upper thigh, and then some toe articulation. So you can pull off a couple of okay poses with him. Strafe has no problem holding on to either one of the weapons assigned to him. Thankfully, his hands, or the holder on his hands, or the plastic I should say, is open up enough so they can hold on to the pick with no problem, or he can hold on to his little blunt sword with no problem. Now, of the 4 figures we've looked at so far, I really like Strafe here. He is just fun to me, just a whole lot of fun. It's something different, it's got a unique transformation, and I think it holds together better than I think it's more well thought out than some of the other ones. Though getting him into vehicle mode can be a little bit tricky, especially with the legs here. They sometimes don't want to accordion or fold up correctly. But, I still think it's a lot of fun. It's definitely the easiest of the bunch to transform, I would say, as opposed to the others, which all have little bits that do get in the way. But, you know what? This whole set is just a bunch of fun to me. Yeah, come on. Yeah, there are a bunch of tabs that you gotta get, and like a lot of things, you just have to make sure you're transforming it in the right order. Otherwise, things don't go together well, and definitely reading the directions helps. And I'm thankful that they actually come with such good directions. So, there. See? That wasn't that hard. Oh, but I did forget that part. And we end up with, again, this vehicle mode. I feel like it's out of a sci-fi novel or out of what's that PlayStation racer? Shoot, not Waypoint. Whatever. Still, yeah, I like it. I think it's cool. And finally, we're taking a look at Scattershot on my super wobbly flight stand. Scattershot in vehicle mode is by far the biggest of the bunch. He is this giant flying cannon, and the gray and the silver, or the gray, silver, black, and red work really well for him. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a giant base mode like the original G1 figure did, but at least this one has a landing gear, unlike the others, though a landing gear that moves. The other flight one has landing gears and wheels molded into it there and there. Overall, it's an pretty okay vehicle mode. Now, the reason I say it's an okay vehicle mode is because it just has this giant seam going down the middle, and there's a reason for that. So transformation into robot mode is pull the front off and pull the back, and then you get a giant cannon. And then we have to pretty much split the figure in half in order to get into the robot mode. But to do that, fold this bottom part up, unpeg it, and then you could split it apart, reach in, and flip up the robot head. And then combine the figure back up, well, not before folding out the legs, closing those up, and flipping the heels and the feet around. Like that. Do the same thing on the other side. Fold that up, close it up, flip the feet and the heels around, smush these together, and then combine them up. And then grab the arms or the outer wings, pull them apart, and then open up the panels and flip out the fists. In terms of size, Scattershot is definitely the biggest of all of them, but not by much. He is kind of monochromatic, but there is some breakup of the red with the red, the blue, and the silver, and the head sculpt is okay, though it's got a really creepy smile. See what I mean? Kind of creepy. I don't know. It's just a little weird. Posability is rather limited. Head can look side to side, can look up that much, can't look down. Shoulder is ratcheted. Swivel at the upper arm, ratchet elbow, zero torso articulation. Very tight ratchet in the hip. Can move in and out. There is that in and out movement of the leg. That's for the combination. Swivel at the upper, or just below, or above the knee. No real foot articulation to speak of. He is supposed to wield this cannon and then a little sword, and he's the only one that gets the little sword, like that. So he's got giant cannon and a little sword. So, yeah, a little weird. Giving him a 360-degree look, you could see how chunky he is, but in robot mode, he's probably... Oh, right, I forgot to flip these pieces up, just to give him a little bit more profile. In robot mode, the legs are a little bit floppy, but not much I could do about that. And he's got a kind of a Hunchback of Notre Dame thing going. Again, nothing I could do about that. That's just the way the figure is. Overall, though, I think he's okay. I think he's a good rendition of a giant scattershot type figure. Okay, now that we're all done taking a look at each one of the figures individually, let's go ahead and get them combined. Just for fair warning, we're going to be taking a look at 2 legs, a torso, our bottom torso, an upper torso, and then the arms. So we'll go ahead and start with the feet. For the first leg, we're going to come down to the vehicle mode and flip out these toes first, then split the rear of the vehicle mode open just a little bit, unpeg this section and fold it down, and it will actually get pegged in between the 2 feet, and then we can fold the toe up. Then we'll come up to the front of the vehicle mode, and this is where things get a little weird. We kind of have to do an transformation where we do kind of a half transformation, where we open them up and then flip this around. Flip it around the other way. Then close up this whole section. Push it down a little bit. Whoop, got that stuck. And then fold his robot head up or down into the body like so. Close this up over it. And then we've got the peg there for the combination. Let me fold the feet back up. And there, we've got a leg ready to go. That's the first one. The second foot is a little bit more complex. Start off by opening up this yellow piece, fold that up, and fold the yellow piece down until it kind of makes a little snapping sound. Take this section, turn it out and around, or you can just kind of leave it like this to make a heel like that. And then we have to somehow get these pegs out. And I find that getting one of the swords in here, it's thin enough to lever it out like that. And that's pretty much it. So we've just got to get this somehow so that it creates a heel. So that works. And like that. And then we've got the 2 legs ready to go. Next up, we're going to form the torso, and this is the easiest part of the whole thing. First, take the rear head, flip it up, around, and then bring it all the way down and kind of smush it in there. Or you can just take it, turn it like that, and sandwich it all the way down like that. Either way works. Doesn't matter. We just have to get it out of the way. Then take the wings, fold them back. Take the thrusters, fold them up like so. Then come down to the feet and fold the feet all the way, or the front of the vehicle mode all the way down. Flip out the toes like that. And then these will snap into place much like a Combiner Wars figure. So 1 and 2, like that. And then it stands straight up. Next, for Scattershot, fold the fists for the robot mode up, partially return the whole thing to vehicle mode, and then quite literally just rip it in half. So lift up, fold that, pull it in half, fold the robot head up, close that, flip that section down, leave the legs as is, except turn the fists around, reach inside and fold out the full fist like that. And you can either leave the heel section at where it is, or you can fold it up. Doesn't really matter, but I prefer to leave it back. Oh, and then you can push the arm in like so. And then do the same thing on the other side. Push the arm in, or the little robot arm in, fold the fist around, fold the giant hand out, fold this section up, and then we're ready to go. And remember these parts? That's where these will peg into this hole. We'll put those off to the side. Lastly, this guy, and oh boy, get ready. So to start off with, reach in there, flip up the giant robot head, like that. Then grab these thrusters and pull them up so that they rest on the opposite sides of the giant robot head. Fold these sections out, Pull the thrusters out, I should say, or the exhaust port, and then grab the shoulders, unpeg them, and then this is where things get a little weird. So eventually oh, whoops. The panels came off. So reattach those panels first, and then we'll continue. Take the back wheels, turn them so that the bottom of the back wheels are pointing towards the front of the head. Then turn the arms in, or bend the arms 90 degrees. And we're supposed to be able to give them the ability to bend like this so that they look like they're shooting forward. The directions have you do this and then have the panel sitting underneath the missiles. I just do it like this. It works fine. There's no real need to do it the way that the instructions say. Then unpeg the legs, and they will fold back, and they will peg. There are slots on the inside of the legs, and they will connect to the side mirrors. Remember I said that those side mirrors are really, really important? That's why. Like that. And like that. Get them in place. Then we can just kind of pose things as we want them so that they look fine. Next, for the chest, kind of fold it up so that you can fold these little panels underneath. Then push the whole chest section down, and it should snap into place. This little peg going into there. If it doesn't, what you can do is untransform it and flip these panels back out. Then push that down and then just fold the panels down like that. And that's pretty much it. Just keeping these leg bits connected to those little tiny bits is real pain. And then this whole section will drop down onto the pegs that are sticking off the top of the strafe. So we just drop this down and peg it into place, just getting everything lined up. I'm not gonna lie, this is a pain. It's not as easy as it looks, but if you're patient, you will be rewarded. And then finally, we take these guys, turn them so that the slots line up, slide them down, and then they will ratchet down into place. And we do that on both sides, and then tweak the legs so it doesn't feel like it's going to fall over. We just gotta kind of futz with the figure a little bit just to make sure everything feels good, and then we're done. In its combined mode, Calculation King looks pretty darn cool and is a really nice, refreshing touch and look of the Technobots. I really like this set a lot. Head sculpt for Calculation King, I think, could use a little bit more paint. It looks pretty good, though. The only real complaint I have about the combined mode are those arms sticking up off the sides. I think they look a little bit silly. But overall, the figure works. The combination works, and it's really cool. But that's not the coolest part. Let's talk about his weapon. Remember all those swords? Well, they kind of have one last little gimmick. They combine. They all combine together. You just have to make sure you find the right ones. So these two will combine. We'll start actually with the middle sections because that'll work better. So those two smash together, and then you slide these up together, and then you slide these pick parts over. Come on. There we go. Come on, come together. Like that. And then finally, like this. And we have a giant foot-long sword. And this is where those super tight elbow ratchets come into play, because otherwise he would not be able to hold on to that giant thing. That's just icing on the cake of cool. I love the fact that he has this giant freaking sword. It's really, really, really cool. Combination King is roughly the same size as Siege Jetfire, and he actually makes a Combiner Wars figure or Combiner Wars Gestalt feel a little bit on the small side, though he is definitely shorter than Predaking. Combination King also dwarfs the Ultimates line from Transformers Cyberverse. In terms of posability, Combination King actually is pretty posable, but you do have to be a little bit careful. Shoulders are on ratchets, then there are ratchets in the elbows. Hips are ratcheted as well, though they are really hard to keep still. And then the knees aren't ratcheted because they're just on very tight hinges. And you can get some okay poses out of him, but I've not been able to get him to pose well with the sword because the sword is actually really heavy. It's maybe a quarter of the overall weight of the entire figure. One thing that I absolutely love is Titans class Predaking can hold the sword with no problem, and oddly enough, the sword scales to him perfectly. Unfortunately, in the combined mode, there's no good place to put this cannon or this little sword. And even if he could hold it, it looks more like a tiny little dagger in his hand than anything else. I would have loved there to be a spot where we could actually place this. The only thing, or the cannon I should say, the only thing I've been able to figure out is that if you fold up the fist and actually transform the leg or the back part back into the way it, supposed to be in vehicle mode, you can attach the cannon here, but it looks really stupid. It would have been much better, in my opinion, if they had had like a peg hole on the outside of either of the legs so that you could attach the cannon there somewhere. I like Calculation King a lot. I think it is a great figure and a fun set, and it wasn't that expensive at all. As third-party figures go, this is a lot of fun, and I think it's worth the money. Is it perfect? No. There are a couple of design decisions that I particularly do not care for, but overall, it's a lot of fun. And that's the main thing that I'm really happy about, is that even though it does have some flaws, they don't all really get in the way of me having fun with the set. So folks, let me know what you think of this set down in the comments. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and please be sure to hit the bell so you know when a new video review is out. Thank you so much for watching. I have been Baltmatrix, and I will catch you next time.